Okay, ready? Here's 7.1. We are going to graph y equals sine x. We're going to do this on another separate sheet, notebook paper. So if you haven't done that, you should be watching that first before you do this part. So everybody will be looking at their graph that they did. So I'm just going to see graph paper. And that's when you create that big, huge graph from before. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to see, like, when we talked about y equals sine x, that's our function. It says degrees here, but we're going to do radians, which is in pi, right? So 0 degrees is 0 radians. This is pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, and then pi divided by 2. When we find the y value, so if this is y equals sine x, I'd say what's the sine of 0? So that means y would have to equal 0. If I said what was the sine of pi over 6, we're going to say 1/2. And then go from there. So we said that this would be the square root of 2, or 2 for the next one. Approximately it became 0.71. Pi over 3, the sine of that is the square root of 3 over 2, which you said was approximately 0.87. And then 90 degrees we said was 1. And then we did each section. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply that. So what you'll need to do now is you'll need your calculator out and put it in radian mode. Okay, so I have a picture of my calculator here. First thing I want to do is I want to look at what they're asking you to do here. It is asking you to change things to your calculator. You're going to put this in y equals, and then you're going to have a domain or your window. Remember, it's from 0 to 2 pi when you see this. That's your domain. And our range is over here. We're going to change this range, though, to negative 1.5 and 1.5. And we're actually going to change this to 0.5. So this is your range. Negative 1.5 comma 1.5 be written like that. Most of the time you've seen that before, and this is your range. So it's your y values. So we're going to go to our calculator. Okay, so as you see here, I went to y equals. I typed in sine x. Sine, we know it's that, and so forth. I'm going to go to now my window, and I need to put my domain and range in. Again, make sure you're in radian mode real quick. Remember, it's your degree when we were finding the values of the trig functions. Now we're graphing it, and we have to be in radians. So I'm going to go to window, and my window, I have it up here. It says it has to be at 0 to negative 2 pi. So I'm going to put a 0 here. Oops, go back. And I'm going to put 0, enter. Okay. So I can only make it so big y'all can see it. And now this is telling me to do 2 pi. So you're going to literally type in 2 pi. Don't type in what value of 2 pi. So you can take the 2, second, and right on the caret key is pi. Okay. And then hit enter. It will change to a decimal, which is fine. We don't want to do it ourselves. Now the x scale, I had the x scale covered up, but the x scale we said had to be pi over 2. Okay, so make sure that when we do this, we're going to do pi, so that's going to be, again, second alpha divided by 2. And again, it's going to change what it looks like, so we hit enter, and it's going to look like that. Now the range is over here. We did the negative 1.5 to 1.5. So we're going to do negative 1.5, enter, 1.5, enter. And we'll go ahead and do an x scale 0.5 so we can see what it looks like. And then we're going to hit graph. Now, if you did a nice little graph, you'll see what this looks like. I'll pull it up as much as I can. Okay, and so there's the graph. And that's exactly what we graphed, okay? And if we look at what's on here, we can see where the x-axis and the y-axis and all those different ones are at. So here is your 0, here's your pi over 2 pi, 3 pi over 2, and then there's 2 pi, okay? And then you're going to go up like that and so forth. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to graph it over here, okay? So I'm going to graph it. So you going to label the axis, okay? It's already ticked off for us on a tick mark. So we're going to start at sorry, my calculator wants to mess. Okay, so we're going to start at zeros here. This is pi over 2. This is pi. This is 3 pi over 2. And this is 2 pi. Now let's label it the y-axis using our range above there. So we have started at a scale of 0.5. So it means I'm going by increments of 5. 0.5, 1, and this top part 1 is 1.5. Down below is negative 0.5, negative 1, and negative 1.5. So now let's graph those angles. And we know what they are. Look at it. So we're at 0. Well, pi over 2 is 1, so it has to go all the way up here. And then pi is here. I think I'm going to use a different color so you can see it a little bit better. So here's 0. Here's pi. Okay. So now we have 0 pi. Pi over 2. Here's pi. 3 pi over 2 is at negative 1. And 2 pi is at 0. This should be a nice symmetrical graph. You notice how on the graph on the calculator how it looks nice and even. Go to the top part, and then we come down. Sometimes the bottom may not always look like the top because you can't see, but make sure that you're getting, if you have a good graph, that'll really, really help. And nice and neat. I expect all these values on the x-axis and the y-axis, and I expect a nice, pretty graph. Okay, if I cannot tell what's on there, then I won't grade it and won't be able to help you, okay? So I can't see, because we will shift these back and forth, and it won't be always the spot. So now we're going to do number 2. So put that in your calculator, just like you see it. Okay, so this time we want our window to be at negative 2 pi to 2 pi. So on our window now we have a 0. Okay, so I'm going to change that to negative 2 pi. So again, go to your calculator. Okay, so we are going to graph from negative 2 pi to 2 pi. X scale is the same on this axis above. So up here in our window, notice that we're supposed to be the x min. We're going to change that to negative 2 pi. Okay, so we're supposed to be graphing again from negative 2 pi to 2 pi. So we're going to do more to that graph above and the red graph above. So this time in x min, I put negative 2 pi. Again, finding 2 pi by hitting second. And the pi key is on the caret key. When you hit enter, go down here. When you hit enter, your graph should look something like this. Oops, I didn't. Sorry, hit enter, then hit graph, because you want to make sure it's up there. So now it looks something like this. So now I'm going to take that graph and I'm going to put it on this number 2 over here on the paper. It's the same as what you see if you look up straight above. I have this half here, which is the same half here. So now I'm just going to take this half as well and graph it over there. Okay, so do that. And we're going to mark all our parts. So when we do that, before we want to make sure that we number, if this is from 0 to pi 2 pi, then this has to be negative 2 pi to 0. Okay, so plot your points, and then we're going to graph the whole thing that you see. Okay, so I'm going to mark my graph. This has to be between 0. So this is still pi over 2. This is pi, 3 pi over 2, and then 2 pi. So this way has to be the negative. Negative pi over 2, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 2, and then negative 2 pi. So my pi's look a little, perhaps look a little too close. Let me change a few of these. So this is negative pi over 2, negative pi, and negative 3 pi over 2. Still going to graph the y values the same. That didn't change. So this is 0.5, 1, and this is 1.5. Down here we have negative 0.5, negative 1, negative 1.5. Okay, so now we're apply our points. On this other side here, I used red, so at pi over 2, it's 1 pi, negative 1, and 3 pi. Okay, so I'm going to graph, excuse me, not 3 pi, 2 pi. Graph this side. Sometimes not doing a one full thing will help. Maybe do it at several times. A little section at a time sometimes helps. And then I'm going to do the other side. This time I'll just use this color. So if I'm going the opposite way, at negative pi over 2, it's negative 1. And then it comes back to 0, up to a positive 1, down to a 0. So again, sometimes just taking a little by little. Okay. They're almost like parabolas, but they're not quite, because this is the unit circle unraveled. So what we're showing, just like you did on your graph paper, is you just unravel the unit circle, the two quadrants, and that's that left side, right side, excuse me. The left side is just the reflection of it, right? That should look pretty symmetrical. On the next page, number 3 is on your next page, and it says, compare the two graphs from number 1 and number 2. What do you predict will happen if you were to graph the sine function on the interval negative 4 pi to 4 pi? So if you notice, we went up, came down, went back up, came down. So probably what will happen, it'll be continues to repeat. Okay. So continues to repeat. You're going to see that up and down. All right, so top of the next page, it says, notice that the graph repeats itself and when you look at it, it's going to be every 2 pi units. That means y equals sine x is a periodic function, okay? A periodic function means that you'll see the graph of the function repeating itself over and over and over. And so when it's periodic, it just kind of does that. If you think of sine waves are kind of like when you look at it on TV and you see the person's heartbeat going, or maybe an EKG reading. The clock is considered a periodic function because it goes around, time does. And then, tides that coming in are also all types of periodic functions. Okay, so they repeat themselves over and over. And it's a period. Now, this is a vocabulary word. It's a period of 2 pi. The period means what's it look like when it repeats. Periodic function, they repeat. So what's happening at the period? Do you want to know how often will you see it repeating? We will see it repeat every 2 pi. So this is also called a sinusoidal graph. Sometimes I spell that wrong, but hopefully I did. Dealing with sinusoids, sine, cosine, and such. So know that these are also sinusoidal graphs, and so it's just another name. And all of them follow under sinusoidal graphs sometimes. You'll hear that, even though there's different types of trig graphs. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to repeat the same thing that we did with cosine x. So put this in your calculator. Again, you're going to think of, in my graphing calculator, I put my since I'm at 0 and to 2 pi, and I put in my y equals. You should have in y equals. Let's go there. And we're going to put in y equals. Hold on, my calculator's not let me. Cosine x. And hit enter. And then we'll graph. Notice on the graph, it's a little bit different. At 0, we start up here at 1. Then we go through the x-axis at pi over 2, down to negative 1 at pi, 3 pi over 2 on the axis at 0, and then up to 1. So we're going to graph this on our paper here, okay? So make sure, again, you write your values across here. So this is pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and then 2 pi. And then this is going to go 0.5, 1, and then 1.5. So these are the tick marks here. This is negative 0.5, negative 1, negative 1.5. Again, so if you notice where I start up here at the top. Up here, I come down to pi over 2 at the axis. I go down here to 1 at pi. Again, cross axis 3 pi over 2. And up here again at 1, trying to line it up nice. And our graph kind of comes down this way. And then it goes up like that. And try to make it even across there, sorry. Okay, again, make sure your notes are nice. I'll be very picky about these, letting you know. Okay, so that's what the cosine graph looks like. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to do the same thing that you did before and do the number, the next graph over for when you're between negative 2 pi and pi. Okay, so at my window, I had to change that x at the top there to negative 2 pi and enter, and that's what I got. So now hit graph, and that's your graph should look like. And then now you're going to graph that on your graph that's on part number 4. Okay, so do that. So this is what your graph should look like. Please make a little bit better W like it does on the little nice calculator you have there, better with that. But then that's between 0 and 2 pi, okay? So now let's go on to, we graphed the sine, cosine. So let's answer the question number 5. Is the cosine, let me move this out of the way, let me pause. The question is the cosine function a periodic function? And the answer is yes, it is. So what is a period? So if you look at this over here, you saw that it repeated here. But if you start here, there's 1, and then I see another one. So when I see the same shape that's repeating, I'm going to look at the values on the x-axis. And so this goes between 0 and 2 pi. So the period is a 2 pi. Okay. So the guidelines for graphing sine x are just what we're going to see on the left. So we're going to graph, the period is 2 pi. We discussed that earlier. And you're going to graph on 2 pi, we're going to graph on one side, unless we say it's positive or negative. So usually when we do talk about the period and a specification, we're usually talking about on the right side, the positive values. So you're going to always label this pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. So right now we're doing the basic one, so it's always going to be between 0 and 2 pi like this. But notice that I have 4 values there. It could shift over and may not be exactly this. So there's like 4 marks that you have to make. And for this is between 0 pi and it's evenly divided by 4 parts. So here I'm going to only have to label 1. I'm sorry, we're not going to do that there. 1's going to go higher. Okay, so we're going to do 1. And we're just going to do negative 1. It's all I'm expecting on the graph, okay? I know that you're going, this increment's a 0.5, but that's all the numbers I need to see. So we're going to start here for sine, go up here, come down, go down to negative 1 like this, and should end on the graph. So this kind of like, you can see the periodic really well. Goes like that. Okay, so that is the sine graph. Y equals sine x, or also get used to f of x equals sine x, because sometimes you're going to see both. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Let's look at for y equals cosine x. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this one. Again, the period's going to be the same. The period is 2 pi. That is not changing. Okay, 2 pi. We're going to graph this function. We can also call it f of x equals cosine x. And we're going to graph it, same idea. We're going to be in the positive side over here. We're going to graph the 4 equal parts between 0 and 2 pi, which happens just to be our nice quadrantal angles. And then we're going to label up to 1 and down here to negative 1. This one's a little different. We start up here at 1. Choose a different color. So we start up here at 1. Come down to pi over 2. Come down to this negative 1. Go up to 3 pi over 2. and go up through. So we come down, and we're going to draw a nice graph. Let's do it this way, see if I can do it better. I think my left side, right side over here is just a little too high. So kind of go down out here really helps me. And then I'm going to go here. Okay. All right. What you're going to do, you're going to do the practice and bring that back next time for me to see it.